Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the curtain of fame? What secrets hide in the photo albums of the world's most beloved stars? Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of music's most private legends, Agnetha Fältskog. We've uncovered rare photographs and stories that have never been shared before, and trust me, you won't believe what we found. Make sure you stick around until the very end, because the final revelation will completely change how you see this iconic star. Let's start at the beginning. Agnetha Fältskog wasn't always the international superstar we know today. She grew up in a small Swedish town called Jinkwing, and her childhood was filled with music from the very first day. Her mother noticed something special about little Agnetha when she was just 5 years old. The young girl would sit at the piano for hours, teaching herself melodies that she heard on the radio. There's a photograph from those early days that rarely sees the light of day. In it, you can see a tiny Agnetha with blonde pigtails standing next to an old upright piano in her family's modest living room. The smile on her face tells you everything you need to know. This wasn't just a hobby. This was her destiny calling. What most people don't realize is that Agnetha wrote her first song when she was only 6 years old. Can you imagine that? While most kids were playing with toys, she was creating music. Her parents weren't wealthy by any means, but they recognized their daughter's gift. They saved every penny they could to make sure she had access to piano lessons and music education. There's another photograph from her teenage years that shows her performing at a local talent show. Nothing a simple white dress, nothing fancy, but the determination in her eyes is unmistakable. The audience might have been small that night, but in her heart, she was already performing for the world. Her journey to stardom began in a way that sounds almost too perfect to be true. At 17, she formed her first band. They called themselves Agnetha Fältskog and her friends, and they played at small venues across Sweden. The pay was terrible, and sometimes there were more people on stage than in the audience, but Agnetha never gave up. She believed in her music with every fiber of her being. One rare photograph from this period shows her and her bandmates squeezed into an old van. Instruments piled around them, heading to yet another small-town performance. The image captures something beautiful about the struggle before success. Everyone in that van had dreams, but only Agnetha had the determination to make those dreams come true no matter what. Obstacles stood in her way. Then came the moment that would change everything. She recorded her first single, and against all odds it became a hit in Sweden. Suddenly, this small-town girl was being recognized on the streets. Radio stations were playing her music. Young people were buying her records. But here's what the photographs from that time reveal. Despite the sudden fame, Agnetha remained incredibly humble. There's a picture of her signing autographs outside a record store. And while other stars might look annoyed or rushed, her smile is genuine and warm. She's looking directly at each fan, making them feel special, making them feel seen. Now we come to the part of the story that everyone knows, but few understand the real details behind it. Her meeting with Björn was not love at first sight, like the fairy tales suggest. The first photograph of them together shows two young people who look almost uncomfortable around each other. They met at a television studio where both were scheduled to perform. Agnetha was already establishing herself as a solo artist, and Björn was making waves with his own musical projects. The chemistry that would later define one of music's most famous couples wasn't immediately obvious. In fact, according to people who were there that day, they barely spoke to each other. But fate has a funny way of bringing people together. They kept running into each other at various music events across Sweden. There's a series of photographs that document their relationship's evolution. In the earliest ones, they're standing far apart, professional and distant. Then gradually, you see them moving closer together. A shared laugh here, a meaningful glance there. By the time we get to the later photographs, the transformation is complete. They're holding hands, leaning into each other, their faces radiating happiness that can't be faked. Their wedding photographs are particularly revealing. Unlike the elaborate celebrity weddings we see today, theirs was a simple, intimate affair. The photographs show a small church in the Swedish countryside. Close friends and family gathered around, and to people who genuinely believed they had found their forever. Agnetha wore a traditional white dress, nothing extravagant, just elegant and beautiful. Björn looked at her like she was the only person in the world. These weren't posed shots for magazines. These were real moments of real love, captured forever on film. What happened next is legendary in the music world. 4 talented individuals came together to create something that would transcend generations. But let's focus on what the photographs reveal about Agnetha during this incredible time. There's an image from their first recording session that speaks volumes. She's standing at the microphone, headphones on, completely lost in the music. Around her, the other members are visible in the background, but she's in her own world. This photograph captures the essence of what made her so special. When Agnetha sang, she didn't just perform lyrics, she lived them, breathed them, became them. The early success was overwhelming. Photographs from their first major performances show the shock on their faces as thousands of fans scream and reach out for them. There's one particular image from their first international tour that's rarely been published. It shows Agnetha backstage, moments before going on stage, and the expression on her face is a mix of excitement and pure terror. This was a woman who had grown up in a small Swedish town, and now she was about to perform for tens of thousands of people who didn't even speak her language. But the moment she stepped into that spotlight, all the fear vanished. The photographs from the performance itself show a confident, powerful woman commanding the stage like she was born to do it. Behind the scenes, life was more complicated than the public ever knew. There are photographs from recording sessions that show the intense pressure they were all under. Record executives demanding hit after hit. Touring schedules that kept them away from home for months at a time. The strain of maintaining perfection in every performance, every recording, every public appearance. In one candid photograph taken during a late-night recording session, you can see the exhaustion on everyone's faces. They'd been working for 18 hours straight, trying to get one song just right. But look closer at Agnetha in that image. Despite the tiredness, despite the pressure, she's still smiling. She's still completely committed to the music. The photographs from the peak of their fame are surreal. Massive concerts with lighting rigs that seemed to touch the sky. Crowds so large you couldn't see where they ended. Award ceremonies where they collected trophy after trophy. But the most interesting photographs are the quiet ones. There's an image of Agnetha sitting alone in a hotel room, still wearing her stage costume, looking out the window at a city she's never visited before. The loneliness in that photograph is palpable. This was the price of fame that nobody talked about. You could be surrounded by thousands of adoring fans, but at the end of the night, you're still alone in a strange hotel room, far from home. Far from everything familiar, her role as a mother added another layer of complexity to her life. Photographs of Agnetha with her children reveal a side of her that the public rarely saw. There's an image of her at a park, pushing her daughter on a swing, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, looking like any other mom enjoying a day with her child. No makeup, no fancy clothes, no cameras except for this one candid shot. The joy on her face in that moment is more genuine than in any staged publicity photograph. This was what really mattered to her. The music, the fame, the success, it was all secondary to being a mother. But balancing motherhood with international superstardom proved impossible. There are photographs from this period that show the strain. Agnetha arriving at the airport, her children holding onto her hands, cameras flashing in their faces. The protective way she shields them from the photographers tells you everything about her priorities. She never wanted her children to be part of the circus. She wanted to give them as normal a life as possible. But how do you do that when you're one of the most famous people on the planet? The pressure on her marriage was immense. Photographs from their later years together show subtle changes. They're still smiling for the cameras, still holding hands at public events. But if you look closely, something has shifted. There's distance in their eyes. They're physically together, but emotionally apart. The music that had brought them together was now pulling them apart. The constant touring, the endless recording sessions, the pressure to maintain their success, it all took a toll that no amount of fame or fortune could repair. When the end came, it wasn't dramatic or scandalous. It was just sad. Photographs from their final performances together show professionals doing their job, but the spark is gone. They're going through the motions, hitting all the right notes. But the magic that had made them special has faded. There's one particular photograph from their last concert that's heartbreaking. It shows Agnetha and Bjorn singing together, standing just inches apart, but they might as well be on different planets. The chemistry that had once been so obvious is completely absent. The decision to step away from the spotlight was one of the bravest things Agnetha ever did. At the height of their fame, when they could have continued printing money for years, she said enough. Photographs from her first year out of the public eye show a woman rediscovering herself. There's an image of her on a Swedish beach, hair blowing in the wind, no makeup, just natural and free. She looks younger in that photograph than she did during the final years of touring. The weight of fame had been lifted, and you can see it. In every line of her face, her retreat from public life became almost legendary. While her former bandmates continued with various projects, Agnetha virtually disappeared. But she wasn't hiding. She was healing. She was being a mother. She was remembering who she was before the world knew her name. Rare photographs from this period show her doing normal things, shopping for groceries, walking her dog, gardening at her home. These mundane activities that most people take for granted were, for her, a form of liberation. The photographs from her island home are particularly revealing. She bought a private island where she could escape from the world completely. Images of this sanctuary show a simple, beautiful house surrounded by nature. No guards, no gates, just peace and solitude. There's a photograph of her sitting on her dock at sunset, looking out over the water, and the serenity in that image is powerful. This was a woman who had performed for millions, who had topped charts around the world, and she'd traded it all for quiet moments of reflection by the sea. The story doesn't end there. One of the most surprising aspects of Agnetha's life has been her occasional returns to music. Photographs from her later recording sessions show a woman who has found peace with her past and confidence in her present. She's older now, yes, but the passion for music hasn't dimmed. There's an image from a recent studio session where she's recording vocals, and the intensity on her face is identical to photographs from 40 years earlier. Music isn't something she does, it's something she is. The photographs of her reunion with her former bandmates are emotional. After years of distance, both literal and figurative, seeing them together again brings back floods of memories. But look at the body language in these images. They're not the young, hungry artists anymore. They're older, wiser, marked by life's experiences. But there's also a warmth there, a genuine affection that time and distance couldn't erase. They shared something unique, something that only the four of them can truly understand. What's fascinating about the more recent photographs is how Agnetha has aged with grace and dignity. In an industry obsessed with youth, she's refused to fight the natural process of getting older. There are no obvious signs of desperate attempts to recapture youth. Instead, the photographs show a woman comfortable in her own skin. Her face tells the story of a life fully lived, with all its triumphs and struggles etched into every line and wrinkle. The photographs with her grandchildren are particularly touching. There's an image of her teaching one of her grandchildren to play piano, just as someone taught her all those years ago. The circle is complete. The music that defined her life is being passed to the next generation. But without the pressure and expectations that she had to endure, she can give them the gift of music purely for the joy of it, not as a path to fame or fortune. Some of the most private photographs show Agnetha in her everyday life now. There's one of her in her kitchen, baking bread, flour on her hands, and her face, laughing at something off camera. Another shows her hiking in the Swedish countryside, dressed in practical outdoor gear, enjoying nature far from any stage or studio. These images reveal the life she's built for herself, a life that has nothing to do with celebrity or performance. It's authentic, it's simple, and it's hers. The photographs from her recent public appearances show something interesting when she does choose to step into the spotlight. She does it on her own terms. There's no desperation to reclaim past glory. Instead, there's a quiet confidence. She knows who she is and what she's accomplished. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. There's a photograph from a recent award ceremony where she's receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. The look on her face isn't pride or satisfaction. It's more like gentle amusement, as if she's surprised that people still remember and care what the photographs ultimately reveal is a woman of incredible strength and resilience. She survived the crushing pressure of international fame. She navigated the pain of a public divorce. She raised her children despite the constant glare of media attention. She walked away from guaranteed success to find herself again. And through it all, she maintained her dignity and her authenticity. The photographs chart not just a career, but a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. There's a recent photograph that perfectly encapsulates who Agnetha Fältskog is today. She's standing on a beach near her home, looking directly at the camera with a slight smile. The wind is blowing her hair, and she's dressed simply in jeans and a sweater. There's no makeup, no styling, no artifice whatsoever. And she looks absolutely radiant. Not with the polished beauty of a celebrity, but with the genuine contentment of someone who has found peace with themselves and their life. The untold story that these photographs reveal is one of a woman who was brave enough to pursue her dreams, strong enough to walk away when the cost became too high, and wise enough to define success on her own terms. She could have been trapped by her fame forever, trying to recapture past glory. Instead, she chose freedom. She chose authenticity. She chose life over legend. Looking at the collection of photographs spanning her entire life from that little girl at the piano to the confident woman she is today, you see an arc that's both inspiring and deeply human. She's made mistakes, faced heartbreak, experienced loss, and struggled with the burden of fame. But she's also created beauty, touched millions of lives with her music, raised a family, and built a life that brings her genuine happiness. The photographs show us something that's easy to forget in our celebrity-obsessed culture. Famous people are just people. They have the same struggles, the same hopes, the same need for love and acceptance as everyone else. The difference is that they have to navigate these universal human experiences under the glare of public scrutiny. Agnetha's photographs remind us that behind every public figure is a private person with a complex inner life that we rarely get to see. What makes these photographs so valuable isn't just their rarity or the glimpse they give us into a famous life. It's that they tell a complete human story. They show us someone at their best and their worst, in moments of triumph and moments of struggle. They reveal the gap between the public persona and the private reality, and in doing so, they make Agnetha Fältskog more relatable, more real, more human. The final photograph in this collection is recent, taken just months ago. It shows Agnetha in her garden, surrounded by flowers she's planted and nurtured herself. She's looking down at a bloom with an expression of simple pleasure. This image, more than any photograph of her on stage or accepting awards, shows a life well lived. She's found her peace. She's discovered what truly matters, and she's living according to her own values, not the expectations of fans or critics, or an industry that's always hungry for more. So what's the ultimate revelation about Agnetha Fältskog that these photographs expose? It's this: true success isn't measured in record sales or concert attendance or awards won. It's measured in whether you have the courage to live authentically, to make choices that honor who you really are, rather than who people expect you to be. Agnetha had the courage to walk away from guaranteed fame and fortune to find something more valuable herself. That's the real story these photographs tell, and it's a lesson we could all learn from. If you found this journey through Agnetha's life fascinating, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the lives of music's most iconic figures. Drop a comment below and let us know which artist you'd like us to explore next. And if you enjoyed discovering the real person behind the legend, share this video with someone who appreciates authentic stories about incredible people. Remember, there's always more to the story than what we see on the surface, and we're here to uncover those hidden truths together.